Today we are going to talk about data fetching in NextJS applications, more specifically NextJS applications uh, that are used for building admin interfaces. So there are two types of websites or applications that we build in general using NextJS. Some are public facing websites. For example, let's say this one is a public facing website where not much interaction, but speed and performance matters the most. So in those scenarios we talk about things like server side rendering, pre-rendering concept, like those helps us most in this kind of scenarios. There are other types of applications, for example admin applications, where you kind of want to manage the website from an admin panel, basically do some CRUD operations, do some fancy edits and things like that. So today's video's focus is going to be on how can we fetch data for how can we properly fetch data for Next.js admin applications, and uh, what are different ways and what is the best way that I've found so far. So to understand that, let's first visit Next.js docs. If you come here, because that's always the best place to start, you will see we have a section called fetching data and streaming, and they talk about two types of components. So server components, which are more useful in public facing websites. Again, we can use everything in every place, but usually for public facing website we use the server components more. And when we are talking about the client components, Next.js proposes two types of, or two approaches basically. The first approach is the React use hook. Another approach is using a library called SWR or React query. Personally, both of these libraries are great. I will not talk that much about the use hook, but just to give you a little bit of background, the use hook helps you to call the external API. So the same thing that we usually do with the use effect, the use hook now, the new use hook now helps us to do that more efficiently and in a nicer way. But let's talk about the second option, because that's what more powerful is, because the use hook doesn't give you some advanced features and functionalities like loading states, prefetching, caching, things like that. So if you want those kind of features, you have to go with a library like SWR or React query. So this is what we're going to talk about in today's video. So just to recap, we are first talking about different way to fetch the data, server side apps and client side apps. Now let's talk about why tanstack query is a better choice. Basically React query is now called tanstack query. If you visit their website, now they provide some they say on their documentation, as you can see, asynchronous state management. So basically you can have some loading states, you can have prefetching, you can have paginations in a nicer way, many powerful features. So explaining tanstack query is not the focus of today's video. Instead, today I'll try to show you an example application where you might want to focus more on client components, and how can you fetch or manage the data in those client components in Next.js using React query. Let's get started. Sorry about the long background, just to set the context. So for example, let's take this application. We do not need this component to be server side rendered because there are a lot of interactions, and as we know, when you have interactions, it's better to have client side components or client components. As you can see, this is a standard CRUD interface where you can see a list of items. So we need a get endpoint, or we can create a new item here, right? Also you can view details of a particular item, right? You can delete an item, you can update an item. So basically all the standard CRUD operations. Now in these applications, using React query can be very beneficial. Let me show you an example architecture of how this might look like. So this is how I structure my apps, and it has served me great in general. So first step is to create an HTTP client. So that's where our first layer of external libraries will be used. So we can use a library called Axios. right? Axios or fetch, whatever, but let's say we use Axios in your HTTP client. Here you specify the root URL, any authentication related concerns and things like that. So this HTTP client is actually responsible for calling any external API and getting the data. Then if you come to the second layer, I usually create a CRUD factory. So the CRUD factory is basically the common CRUD functions. So what do I mean by common CRUD functions? If you visit this admin interface, you will see the first action or the first function that we need is a get function. We need a post endpoint to create a new item. We need a patch endpoint to update the item. We need a delete item, right? Also to view details of a single item, we need to have a get item by ID endpoint, right? So these are the common CRUD scenarios. I will explain all of these in code, then it will be more clear. But that's what this CRUD factory does. It creates the common CRUD functions. Next, we come to the domain specific things. So if you come back to this application, you will see we have a lot of different items. We have categories, shows, songs, FAQs, testimonials, things like that. So each of these item can be considered a domain, and for each domain you may have some custom requirements. For example, when you are getting the songs, we may want to have the tracks for that song, right? Also we may need to add a track for this song. So there are some extra additional capabilities that we need sometimes that are not supported by the common CRUD functions, and that's where this domain specific customization comes in. We call that clients. So let's say for the orders, we can create an order client. For let's say song, we can create a song client, things like that. So there will be different clients, so it will be a clear separation of concerns, and each layer will have a single responsibility. So these clients will leverage the CRUD factory to adopt the common functions, and on top of that, if they want to have any special function, they can add it there. Again, I'll explain everything in code shortly. Finally, to use these clients, we'll use the hook, a single hook for each client. So it will be, let's say, use order client. The second one can be, let's say, use song client, right? Things like that. And this order client, song client, each of these hooks will be responsible to use the React query, because as you know, React query exports the hooks. We can't really use those hooks in this clients. So these clients are basically plain JavaScript functions. So starting here, we're entering into the React territory where you are using or leveraging the power of hooks. So in this layer, we use React query to manage the endpoints, and you will see how easy it becomes once you initially set up everything. Then the amount of code that you need to write is really minimal. You just need to call a single function from each of these clients, and that's it. Your loading state, your on success, on failure, everything is configured automatically. Finally, the UI leverage these hooks. For example, if we again come back to this page, when we are in songs page, the songs page is leveraging the use song client hook to get everything that it needs: create, delete, update, everything. Okay, so let me just show you the implementation, how it looks like in code, so that it's easier for you to understand. So this is the HTTP client, which is our first entry point, as I mentioned here. So this is the HTTP client where you use the Axios library, the interceptors, your base URL, other timeout, basically any kind of HTTP configurations that you need, and the common HTTP functions here. Second, we can go to this CRUD factory. So this is this CRUD factory. Let me zoom out a little bit. So this CRUD factory is again the common functions. So all items. This is the function to get paginated items. This is the function to get items by slug. Notice we are using HTTP client here. Basically all four of these functions use the same HTTP function get, right? We have post for create, update for patch, and delete for delete. So basically if your backend is supporting, or your backend is created following this structure, it's really easy to integrate. Let me show you how the code is structured. So it's a Next.js app directory, if you notice on the left side. And here you can see we have a single folder for each of the items. So I was showing you the songs. So if you go to this songs page, now I'm going from the reverse. So we have seen HTTP client, we have seen CRUD factory. Now I'm showing you how it happens, how the magic happens this way. So if you come to the page, you'll see at the top of the page I'm using a song client, and this song client hook is giving us all of the necessary informations: song, pagination information, create, update, delete functions, the loading states, everything. Now let's visit the song client. This song client has, or this song client use our actual this use song client hook use our actual song client. So as you can see, this is the function to get everything, this is the function to create everything. Notice we do not have any HTTP related thing at all, right? So usually this is where most of the code base gets very dirty, because we create hooks and inside that hook we try to manage everything: the pagination, the authentication states, the everything basically we try to manage inside that hook. But notice how clean this is. This 2 lines of code gives you everything that you need to get the data. This 5-6 lines of code gives you the everything you need to create a new item, right? It even refetches the data and does everything. This is for update, delete, right? So everything is created here neatly. And finally, to show you the song client, so if you go here, this is really simple. This song client is just calling the CRUD factory. As I told you before, sometimes we need some special extension here. As I said, we need some customization. In those scenarios, it is not as simple as just calling the CRUD factory. So let me show you an example. Maybe we can see here. No, here, no, probably in orders, no. Okay, so let me quickly show you here. Yeah, okay. So as you can see in the user client, we have the basic CRUD factory, but on top of that we have two special methods: add track and remove track. So here, by calling CRUD factory, you're already getting all of the necessary items that you need, and on top of that you can add these custom functions, again using the HTTP client. That is very easy for you to handle. So that's how I usually manage the data in larger admin applications, and it has served me really well. How? Because it's really clean and easy to understand. Each layer has its own responsibilities, and the major benefit that I get here is when I use AI to generate these pages, so to work with the code, I don't need to specify too many things. In this whole application, I just created this first page, this orders page, and I did everything that I needed here. All of the good practices, best practices, managing the states, creating, viewing, editing, updating, everything that I did here. And for the rest of the application, I just told AI to follow the same structure that we followed here. That's it. And that's the major benefit of following a good structure. So thank you. Thank you for watching this. I'll try to link an article on this in the description so that it's easy for you to follow. Thank you.